So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys, based on the time zones you all are coming from. So guys, before we start with the session, can you all please give me a quick information if you all can see my screen and hear me loud and clear as well? Perfect. Thank you for the confirmation, everyone. My name is Neeraj Kedia, and I've been working in this IT industry for more than 13 years now. So the main agenda for today's session, we have gathered for our discussion on Angular. So now, if you talk about the entire GUI and its drawbacks, so GUI is what? GUI is basically a graphical user interface. It's a visual way to interact with the electronic devices such as computers and mobile, because again, not everyone is comfortable with the command line interface. It is only restricted now to developers. For that, we need to know how exactly the programming works. Then only we can give commands to the user, to the system, or else we can use entire graphical user interface where we can interact easily with the system because we don't have to write a single line of code. We can simply use the interface and then we can get the job done. And that exactly has what has resulted in computers being in the hands of almost every, if we can say, computer present in almost every household right now. So same way, this is also based on the same Node.js framework, and then we are going to look at how we can install Angular and how we can make use of it. Now, the main drawbacks of GUI, again, it consumes larger computer memory than what is possible with the CLI. It is expensive for hardware support, and then it consumes a lot of time because again here a good amount of graphical processing is required for rendering whatever we need to render on that particular page altogether, right? And that's natural that it requires more system resources as compared to CLI. And CLI and its benefits, now we know that the command line interface is a user interface that is used in a text format, that is commands in the window prompt that we can make use of. And the main benefits of using CLI is it consumes low computer memory, it offers faster and more efficient computation as compared to its counterparts, and it allows a better CPU processing management as the time required to complete any given task is less. And again, it's cheaper as low screen resolution is used because we only need to see the command line. That's it. All right, so let's discuss on the concept for Angular CLI. So Angular is again a complete JS framework that we have. And then we have the Angular, which is basically using the Angular CLI. So when we are trying to install and work with Angular, we can interact with the entire CLI to simply create the application and then start working on the application deployment right away without taking the help of any GUI methods. We can simply work with the Angular CLI. So first of all, let's see how exactly we can work with the Angular CLI installation. So before we can install Angular CLI, we have to install Node.js. So first of all, we do need to have the Node.js package installed. So we can download Node.js from this package, this link called nodejs.org/download. So once we are on this page here, we can click on download, and here we can choose the platform. If we are running Windows, we can choose Windows. If we are running Mac, we can choose Mac, or we can choose it to be downloaded for any Linux environment as well. Now, once we have downloaded this, now we can come back to our CLI. So for that, we can open up the command prompt. Now in command prompt, we can see the command. Now here, if we are using Windows, if we are using Mac OS or Linux, we can use terminal, or in here in Windows, we can use command prompt. To see if Node has been properly installed or not, we can use commands such as node space version. So this is going to simply show us the version of Node.js that we have installed, and then we also have to see the version for npm. npm refers to Node Package Manager. So here we can check for the version of npm by using -version. So now to work with, now first of all, here to install the Angular package, we are going to make use of the npm. We are going to make use of npm, and then we are going to see how exactly we can download the Angular CLI. So for that, we have to use the npm package manager, and then we are going to see how have help which lists available commands and their short descriptions. We have lint, which basically it runs the linting tools on Angular application code in a given project folder. So these all are different common command sets that we have that we can make use of. All right. And then we can define the entire, now in order to get started defining our own application, first of all, we can create a new application. So for that, we can define ng, and then we can define ng new. And here we can define the name of the project. For example, here we define as my project. So here we can name as my project. And this is going to create a new Angular application. And then we can define if we want to add Angular routing, yes or no. If yes, we can see, and then we can define which style sheet format would you like to use. If you want to use the SAS-based SCSS or SAS or less or stylus, which styling sheet we want to use here. Let's say we want to stick with traditional CSS. And then this is going to install all the packages required for deployment of the Angular framework in the current application that we have created. So let's wait for a second. All right, so once we have configured, now we can see the entire CLI, the entire application has been successfully created, right? It has been successfully deployed. So now to make use or to simply start using the application, now once we have the application created, then we have to switch to the directory. So we have given the command as cd my project, right? So here we can switch to my project, and then to start the server, we can use ng-serve, and this is going to serve the application on the local 4200 port, and then we can see the entire application being compiled and then presented in the browser. Let's wait for that to happen. So the entire app is going to be projected one by one. All right, so now it says compiled successfully. And once it has been compiled successfully, this is going to open the application in the browser, and that too on port 4200, where we can see the actual application being opened up. So as you can see here, if you open up localhost port 4200, we can see the entire application, the entire Angular application that has been rendered, that we have compiled right now, has been opened up. Now, once we have the entire application deployed here, we can now start. Now, if you want, we can work with any of the IDs as well. That means here we can start working on customizing the entire application as and when required. So for example, if we want to work with the IDs, let's do one thing. All right. So we can use any of the IDs, like we have the Visual Studio Code. Now, once we open up Visual Studio Code, let's open that up. So here we have to open up the folder, the directory, the folder in which we have deployed this my project Angular application. So let it open up. All right, so here we have to open up a complete folder. So here we can define for open folder, and here we are going to choose the my project that has been created. We can select folder, and now the entire directory for my project is going to be opened up. As you can see here, this is entire directory structure for Angular application, where we have the E2E. E2E is especially used for the end-to-end testing. Then we have the entire source file, which contains the main source file for the application that we are currently looking at in the browser. Here we have the application as now. Here we have the entire app component that we are going to create. Now, same way we have React, if we have different components in React, we can see here we have app component.html. So right now, so whatever we are seeing here in the browser, is inside this app component.html. So let's say if we replace this with a simple HTML. Suppose we define this, we want to replace simple H1 element as welcome to Angular JS. If we close the center tag here, if we save this up, again, the same thing is going to be rendered in the browser, as in changing the entire complete content for the entire web page here as a part of app component.html. And then we have CSS. So whatever the styling for whatever element we are going to place here as a part of app component, we can define the styling for it as well. For example, let's say here we have placed the H1 element, right? Here we have placed the H1 element. So now we can define the CSS for this H1 as well. As suppose for H1, we want to have color defined as red. We can save it. As you can see here, it simply gets rendered in the browser by having the CSS defined. So now if you also want to come, now if we are looking to include, if we are looking now here, we have the index of HTML. That means whatever is currently being rendered in the browser, that is currently being defined as a part of the index.html that is currently being rendered. So whatever we define as app root, and in the app root we had currently defined app component.html. That exactly is what gets rendered in the browser, right? So basically the entire structure for the application, that means the entire structure for the application is defined in angular.json code. So basically here we have all the structure defined. That means what exactly is going to be the root, the builder, the output part, the index document, which document is going to be treated like an index document, the main.ts file, and then we are going to see the assets, the styling component, where it is going to be fetched from, the favicon and all the assets from which folder they are going to be referred, the entire configuration for and then we have the optimization, output hashing. So the entire configuration for the Angular application is defined in angular.json that we can change as per the requirement. And then we have the, now for changing, as we discussed here, we have the entire index file defined in index.html. So let's say we are going to integrate, let's say we want to integrate the Bootstrap framework here with Angular. So Bootstrap is again a framework, and let's say we are going to integrate Bootstrap with Angular. We want to use the functionality for Angular, but for the styling component, we want to make use of Bootstrap. So what we can do here, we can get the Bootstrap framework first. So here we can define Bootstrap download. So from here, we are going to get the Bootstrap framework as in CDN. We can either use the local file, as in we can download the local CSS and JS files. So Bootstrap is also one of the other frameworks that we can make use of, or we can specify the use of the CDN. We can also use CDN as a part of we can say creating the entire folder structure for us. We can do that. All right. So once we have that, let's do one thing. Let's copy the entire CDN here. We can copy this, come back. Now this is a CDN that has to be this entire link. That means currently we are going to link the CSS file, and then we are going to integrate the script as well. That means the JavaScript for Bootstrap. So if you want to embed this has to be embedded in the index.html file itself. So here, just before closing of the head tag, we can place the CDN files that we have copied. So basically, this is going to embed two files, Bootstrap minify.css. This is a styling component. And if you also want to include the functionalities that has been predefined in Bootstrap minify.js, then this is what we can define here, right? So here currently we have integrated two different scripts, one for the style sheet and the other JavaScript. And then we have to update this in index.html. That means now if we place some content under app component, for example, here we have the same content, right? Now if we go back, now we can see the entire font has been automatically we can say updated based currently we use H1, right? So whatever styling component is defined in H1, that is going to be defined here for the current application as well. Same way, let's say afterwards we want to place a button. We want to place a button, and now let's say here we have get started. If you save it, we can see the same button has been updated, but again currently there is no styling defined for this entire button. So now if we want to make use of the styling files here, then we have to make sure that we do update this. We do refer to the classes here we define in Bootstrap. So for that we have to define button, and then we can define the class. Suppose here we want to call the button as class as btn and btn for success. Then here we can define the classes here, and then whatever class we are going to define here, that is going to be applicable in the folder. As you can see here, currently we have defined the btn class that is defined in Bootstrap framework. So Bootstrap basically has multiple classes defined, so we don't have to create these things manually at our end. That exactly is what Bootstrap is all about. And now we can integrate all the other components from Bootstrap. For example, let's say if we want to place a form section here. For example, if you're going to build a form here. So let's say here we want to go to build a form. So here we can open up a form, and here we can define, for example, suppose we build a form here, and under form here we define as, suppose, username, or we define as field set, and a field set we define as label for, suppose, username, and here we can define, we are going to ask the username itself. We can make it a bit bolder. And then we can define the input type as text. We can define the name as, suppose, username. The class here we can use form control as a class defined in Bootstrap framework. And then if you want to place any placeholder, then we can define placeholder as in enter your username. So once we are done, again, it's a good practice to simply close all the tags here just to avoid any kind of incompatibility being placed in the website, right? So now as you can see here, now currently we have placed the entire username as an input box that has been defined here, correct? So if you want to restrict the entire size here, what we can do, we can come back, and in here we can restrict the size. How? We can restrict this by defining the container here. So let's do one thing. Let's say we open up the entire content inside the container. So for example, here we define div class as container. We can define the div class as row, and we want this one should be displayed in a single column. So here we can define div class. We want to have two different forms created, one in the right side and one in the left side. So here we can define div class, and then here we can define call MD6. If you want to split this in half, there we have MD6, MD5, MD4 for 1/3, MD6 for dividing the entire 12 columns into half. So it will have 6 columns each. And then here in this column itself, we can define the forms. So for example, here we can also add a simple H3 as the sign up form, as the, we can say, login form. We can save it. If we come back, we can see the same thing is going to be updated back in the application as well once it has been properly defined. And then we have the main.ts file. So again, main.ts file contains all the different production and all the other variables that needs to be imported as a part of the Angular application. And then under environments, we can have the entire production environment defined. So whatever we need to define for a production environment, we can define the entire parameters, and this is going to be applicable for the Angular project. And then we have git ignore. So git ignore is basically useful when we want to link multiple files that are not going to be used on a frequent basis. So we can include those kind of files as a part of git ignore. So again, thank you so much for joining, guys, and have a great day ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.